Hello. Um, Hi, my name is Rebecca Latto. I think we're just going to wait a few minutes to make sure that everything's working. Yep, so just hang tight. Okay, cool. You guys can hear me. Hi. I'll just overview what I'll be talking about, I guess, while we wait for more people to come on in. So the title of my talk is How to Get Research Internships. So I'll be talking about research internships I've had in the past, and then I'll go through the steps that I think that is most useful, the steps that are most useful for finding your own research internships. And then I'll have some time at the end for questions. Hi. I'm good. How are you? Sorry. That's Okay, I think I'll get started if that's cool with anyone, everyone. um, okay, cool. Hi, my name is Rebecca Latto. In this Facebook Live, I'll just be sharing a presentation I put together. So I'll be talking about how to get research internships. Thank you guys for listening on a Saturday. Okay. Okay, so a little bit about my background. I'm from Connecticut in the United States. So in that circle there. But I went to university in New York at Columbia University, where I got a Bachelor of Science in Applied Physics at the engineering school. So that's a little picture of campus. It was really pretty. And then that's just a picture of me at graduation. Woo! So I graduated this past May, like 5 months ago. Yep. So that's my general background. And then focusing in on my background in research internships specifically. This is a screenshot from my LinkedIn, which is something I'll talk about later. But these are my 4 main research internships. And what I'll do is I'll just go through each of them and explain kind of what I did. Great. So my first research internship was with NASA. Which you might have heard of. And I was there during the summers of 2013 and 2014. So I was in my second year and third year of high school. So I was like, I guess 15 and 16 years old. I was really lucky in that I grew up very close to a NASA campus, which was in New York. And I found an opportunity online and I applied for an internship in climate science. So I ended up doing that for 2 years and I commuted into the city during the summer. And then during the school year, I just did regular school. And then during the summer again, I was involved in this internship. It was a really rewarding internship. I was able to present my research at a conference in San Francisco, which is where these photos are from. So that's a picture of me when I was 15, presenting on atmosphere science stuff above New York City. So that was pretty exciting. And then I got to college, and I started working at NASA, but more in a full-time context during the school year, and then as well during the summer. And I was working on oceanography, and using machine learning to better understand the ocean carbon cycle, which is very important because the ocean is taking in a lot of carbon dioxide from our atmosphere. So these are just a bunch of pictures of me from conferences that I ended up going to present my research. American Geophysical Union is a really big conference every year. There's about 30,000 people that go. And then Ocean Sciences is also a very big conference. And then I also had little presentations throughout my internship, through the university and things like that. So that was my big internship. After I graduated, I moved to Canada, Vancouver. It's in that map there. If you can't really see it, but I made a circle around Vancouver. And I was a research assistant at Simon Fraser University, studying glaciers in the northwest part of Canada. So the bottom 3 pictures are from my fieldwork experience. When we went up to the glaciers and we took radar data. And then my internship comprised of me analyzing the radar data to figure out how deep the glaciers in this area are. And then from that, you can understand how fast the glacier is changing. And then that was for the past 3 months through to August. And then I moved to Tasmania. I don't have a lot of pictures from Tasmania, so that's a picture of my dog. Well, my housemate's dog. And then I work at the University of Tasmania. I spend half of my week at Sandy Bay campus, which is where Albert works, if you know him. And then the other half of my time is at the Institute for Marine and Antarctic Studies. And I am researching glaciers and how we can study them using seismology techniques. So just, this isn't about my research, but I just wanted to talk about this briefly in case it's kind of interesting. So this is a video of a big glacier calving event, which is when that big iceberg just topples over. And I'm talking over it, but there's a lot of noises that come from that. So the picture on the right is from someone's paper. I probably should have cited them, but this wave at the top is the kind of wave you can get from a glacier process. So from not even being there without hearing or seeing this event on a YouTube clip, like if you had a seismometer at this area, you'd be able to know that something is happening with the glacier just by the seismic signals. So that's what I study at Simon Fraser University. UTas. And I am also using machine learning to study these kinds of processes. In glacier physics is like the general topic. And then just to be clear, I didn't only do research internships in my past. You don't have to only do research to get research. These are 2 other jobs that I had in between. I worked at the Skyscraper Museum in New York City because I thought I wanted to study civil engineering. And I also worked in a restaurant in high school. So there are other things going on. Okay, so this is going to be like the crux of my talk. I made this little graphic, but I'm not an expert at this, so feel free to ask any follow-up questions on anything that's not clear. But I decided that these are the 3 tenets to getting research. So building your own research brand, knowing where to look for research, and then knowing how to network. So I'm just going to go through these 3 topics, and I'll use some of my own stuff as examples. And then if you have questions afterwards, just feel free to let me know. Okay, so building your personal research brand. Okay, so I feel what's very important with building your personal research brand is you're kind of selling yourself to researchers as someone who can participate in research, do really well, understand, that kind of thing. And part of building your personal research brand is very similar to like building your social media presence if you're interested in that kind of thing. So I'll just go through different techniques that you can do to build that. The first one is LinkedIn. It's pretty important to have a LinkedIn no matter what field you're in, whether you're looking for research internships in academia or internships in anything else. Just having that presence on this platform is super important. So I update my LinkedIn whenever I change jobs or something like that. This is an example of my LinkedIn. You can go to that URL if you wanted to check it out. It's not that exciting, but it has like the bare bones, my information. A lot of people have a lot more information on their LinkedIn. They also like post about their careers, which is something you can do. I just don't. In science, what most people use either as another option to LinkedIn or just instead of LinkedIn is ResearchGate. So it's like Facebook, but for research. I have one because I've published a paper, so it's very useful to have my paper listed on my ResearchGate, and then people can other researchers will find my paper when they look up keywords in it. And then it's also a way to see like who is looking at my research. So ResearchGate is also a really excellent tool to building up your personal research brand. Okay, and then the next two things I have are resume and CV. So to my left, to your left, on the left side of the screen is a copy of my resume from like a year ago, yeah, about last year. And this is a pretty basic template for a resume. So you can use my template if you want, but I basically just break it up into education and then work and leadership experience. If you don't have a ton of experience because you're only in high school or you're at a very different level, then it's not expected that your resume is a full page like mine. In fact, it would probably be kind of off-putting if you gave a giant resume filled with nonsense. But I have resumes from when I was in high school, so maybe I could post that somewhere if that's more useful. And then to the right, I have a quote from the Career Education Services from my university. They said, a resume is a marketing document and a concise, tailored summary of your experience, education, and skills. A CV is a complete record of your academic and professional achievements, typically used for positions in academia. So what I heard about the resume is when you apply for a job, they'll look at it for like 4 seconds or something like that. Like you just have to have like a few things bolded, and it just has to be like a really quick snapshot of who you are as an employee. And I've emailed or submitted my resume when I've applied for jobs, mostly not in academia, like ones at the museum or things like that. But my CV is updated because it's what I use more in my field and when I apply for programs. So this is a copy of my CV. It's 2 pages. It didn't used to be 2 pages when I first started out, but I've had a few presentations and papers and things like that. So that like fills out my CV. But it is, as you can see, a lot more expanded. This is like everything about me as it pertains to research and earth science. The biggest thing I want to highlight is the areas of research interest. So part of building your personal research brand, it's really important to know like well, you don't have to know exactly what kind of research you're interested in. And in fact, everything in this box has kind of been changing for me in different ways, but it's important to have at least some kind of idea, be like, oh, I'm interested in environmental biology and some kind of special algorithm. I don't know, something like that. It's just important to have, like, to be able to sell yourself in a few sentences about like what you're interested in, even if that interest changes or if you're not necessarily as interested in it as you thought. A big part of this CV, although I don't think people really look at it as much, is leadership and service. So I'll talk about that kind of stuff later, but it's also super important in terms of building your personal research brand, because I don't think anyone would want a researcher who's just kind of vanilla, just goes to work and goes home. So there should be other elements to you that you sell yourself. I don't know if I should say sell yourself, that you like promote yourself with when you're applying for research positions. Okay. Okay, so knowing where to look. So this is like the big one. I feel that a lot of people don't know where to find research internships. And I found that since being more involved in research internships, now I get emails more. Well, I'll just talk about where to look in general from my experience. So my first step is always universities in your area. So if you're interested in research internships, that means that your path is kind of at one point or another, whether or not you plan on going to university, is going to be involved in doing research at a university, because that's, or at a research institution, but that's usually who has the funding for research. And also like the most amount of opportunities you'll be able to find like in one place. So if you're really interested in glacier physics and you look up the university that's nearby you, and you go to their Department of Earth Science, you can see what kind of seminars they have up during the month and things like that to see what kind of research they're involved in. Meeting with professors is one way to figure out what kind of research there is, if there isn't any written thing about it on the website. Checking online opportunities on the university website, just like seeing if they've posted that, oh, we're looking for like PhD students or things like that. Because if they're looking for PhD students in a certain field and you don't want to be a PhD, or you don't have the qualifications for a PhD student, but that technically means that they're also just looking for people to do research in that field. So maybe you can apply to be like a research assistant or something like that. And then also just ask around to see if anyone needs summer lab assistants or research hands. So when you're not heavily involved in research, you need to be trained quite a bit. But there are still opportunities to get involved, even at a lower level, just so you can learn. And it'll probably just be like small things like data handling or processing or things like that. But at least you're like figuring out what you're getting interested in, and it's a pretty mutual beneficial relationship. So that's like a first step. Oh, and then I had a little map from the Facebook page, because I guess that's the area for everyone listening. Another thing, this is my favorite website for finding research internships. It's called pathwaystoscience.org, and I used to just spend like hours scrolling through all the opportunities. Obviously, they have 1,197 opportunities listed, and you can choose which disciplines you're interested in, and they have everything. This isn't how I found my NASA internship. I found that just by Googling NASA internship. But since being on this website, they have all of the NASA internships listed, which are usually, mine was only for people in the New York City area, but a lot of them are open to international students. But this is a really useful website, because it doesn't just list internships with universities, but it also lists them with like international and US institutions that aren't necessarily a university, like NASA. Another thing, what I was talking about before, like going on a university website, like if you go on university websites near you, there might be something like this, like with an opportunities blurb on a professor's website about openings and availabilities. Professors or researchers usually want it to be known that they are open to hosting students, because that's how they build up like their situation. So you can either find this kind of thing on university websites at universities in your area, or that would be something to look for if you're looking to go to a different area. Like this is one of the ways I could have found an internship in Canada or Australia when I was looking. Would have been to go on the university websites and see what kind of scientists are available. That is actually how I found a few of my internships that I've applied to, just emailing professors and being like, I'm very interested in your research. I saw that you have openings. Like, is there any way we could work out some kind of internship or something like that? And email listservs. That's what I was talking about, how I've been getting a lot of emails about positions, and I was never on these email listservs when I was actually looking for these types of positions. So I feel like they're good to know about now. AGU is the American Geophysical Union, where I went to a bunch of the conferences. and they have a career center that sends you emails. Most of the emails are for higher up levels, like assistant professor, like the one listed here. But for example, I saw a job opportunity for a PhD student from this email listserv. But I was really interested in the topic of the PhD, but I didn't want to do a PhD. So I ended up getting in contact with the person who posted the job opportunity and just said that I was interested in the topic without wanting to do a PhD, and we're working together to make an internship out of that. So that's always good to know what kind of jobs are available above you and then how you can get into them at a lower level. And then CryoList is very specific to me, but it's cryosphere is ice. So any like glacier, ice, sea ice, any type of opportunity, I get emailed from this listserv. So if you're interested in like bugs, there must be some kind of like bug listserv or something like that. And then Handshake, I didn't know if that one was particular to my university, but my university has a job internship server website, and it's coordinated through this website called Handshake. I don't remember looking for a nuclear, mechanical, electrical, chemical at Navy job, but they send me jobs and things like that. So email listservs, you can find them online places, or you can email people asking if there's a listserv for their field, like biology or something like that. If you find a professor, like they'll know what listservs to send you to. And in terms of emailing, just make sure you're using an email that you'll use probably through your professional years. Like don't use like alexlovescats@gmail.com. Like make sure you're using a professional email because you'll want to stay with these email listservs as you start using your email for more like professional things. Oh, am I talking too fast? It's fine. Okay, networking. So everyone always says like, oh, I don't really like the word networking because it comes across as like you being fake or ingenuine or things like that. So I just wanted to redefine networking. The way I see it is you're just talking to people who can help you do what you want to do. I've never networked with someone in an ingenuine way. I'm always interested in their like life path, like how they got to where they are, and then also like how I could be them, kind of, which is how I perceive networking. I don't know if that's wrong, but these are two ways to network. One of them is emailing professors or scientists who are in positions you want to be in one day, which is kind of what I just said. And that's, I guess, a more formal networking. But there's a much easier networking, which is talking to students in university that are like me or Albert, if you know Albert, because we know who you should reach out to and can help you along your path. So this is an example email I wrote up like super briefly right before this. If you're emailing like a scientist, a lot of people don't know how to email people in higher up positions because it seems kind of intimidating. But there's like a very simple format. All you have to do is say who you are and why they should keep reading your email. So in this one, I'm in grade 10. I wasn't sure what kind of school years you had because it seems to be different everywhere. But I'm in grade 10 in high school and I'm thinking about my next steps. If you weren't given their email or name from someone else, like if you weren't referred to this person by a different person, you kind of have to sell yourself on your own and be like, I'm interested in learning about my future, like plans. Like, so that's a way to do it, thinking about my next steps, how you found their email, and then saying like something about the research that you're interested in, and then just kind of asking to meet. Professors or researchers are always very busy, it seems. They have a lot on their plate, but there is always time to meet with students, especially ones that are interested in their field. So that should be something that's available. if you can't meet, if you found like a scientist in Alaska and you're like, oh, well, I can't go to Alaska, but I really want to learn more about their research or like how they got to be like a professor of earthquakes at Alaska, you can always ask to Skype instead. And it doesn't have to be a long email, especially if you're coming from a lower education level. Just like short and quick, and then email subjects people are always really nervous about, or I'm really nervous about, but just having a concise email subject that explains why you're emailing them, being like student interested in learning about fabrication of bugs. I don't know a lot of science fields, but something like that, and just this is like a very easy thing to do and a very good way to like expand your network and meet people. And then once you, let's say you did Skype with this person in Alaska and you're like, I'm really interested in this, then you can follow, they will probably be inclined to be like, oh, well, if you're interested in this, you should apply to this opportunity or sign up for this listserv, or I don't know, they'll like, everyone has really good advice and it's just useful. Like it's networking, but you're also just getting advice. And then while you're getting advice, you're like figuring out your next step. So it's like a little sneaky, but it's not really at all, because you're just trying to like build up, you know? And then this is a fake email I wrote to myself that you could write to me if you wanted to network with me. Because I'm at a lower level, like you should be like, hi, blah, blah, blah. You like, if you really, really enjoyed my presentation, that'd be great. And then if you say like what you're interested in, like I'm sure most students would be very willing to help you out, because they're much closer to where you were, or where you are is where they were much closer than professors. Oh, okay. And then this is a big one as part of networking. And it's like, why is this part of networking? But I don't know. I made all this up anyway, but having interests outside of research, I think, is a really big part of networking. Like what I was talking about with your resume or a CV, like having interests that aren't necessarily just research to kind of like make yourself seem more like a person. So this, I don't know if this counts as a club, but for me, I had my club Spectra, which I think I talked about in my little blurb, but it is a society that we started back at my university for inclusion and diversity in physics. So my research is a big part of my resume, but when I talk to scientists and things like that about doing science, I always try to incorporate that I'm really interested in finding ways to maintain these platforms for communicating about diversity and things like that. So I don't know, that's just an important part of networking. So the picture on the right is me and some members of my club, and we had a conference for women in physics. And like that was a networking opportunity in and of itself, even though it was for an interest outside of my research. So that was cool. Having hobbies is really great. The picture under to the left is from during college. I went to Death Valley in California to do a geology class, just because I was interested in that kind of field work. And that led me to a bunch of other opportunities randomly by like the teacher's assistant on that trip being involved in glacier physics. And then he led me to another person who led me to another person, et cetera, et cetera. So having like hobbies and interests that aren't my research, because my research was oceans, and I was like, oh, I want to go to Death Valley and look at rocks. So it's just kind of like, but it is kind of a networking thing because you get to meet people who might have your same research interests but share your hobbies. And then community service is also really important as just like finding what you like to do outside of research will always make your research better. I don't know if that really applies at your level, but it's just something to think about. Yep. that's my presentation. Here's my dog again. Well, my housemate's dog. Questions, and then I'll go through your questions on the Facebook. Also, how to reach me. That's my email. And then I just email me about anything. I'm very open to that. Great. Okay, so I'll go through your questions. Sorry, I got to do a little scrolly situation. Hi. Okay. I am concerning about environmental and/or ecology. Could you tell me about the chance to get internship research? So that's kind of broad, but there are a lot of different things that I've said that could apply to answering that question. Just like going through universities, looking up keywords like ecology. Oh, one thing that I did that was really useful is I was really interested in getting involved in research in gender and racial diversity in fieldwork. So I went on Google Scholars and I looked up papers that had to do with that. And then I found a really great paper on that subject and I emailed the first author, and then I got the opportunity to work with them. So if you research ecology on Google Scholars and you find papers that are interesting, you can email the first author or any of the authors on the papers. And then that is one way to do it. Okay, sorry. Okay. Would you share with us any tips and tricks in writing essay application form for research internship? Oh, okay. Essay applications, I feel like they have three components. Well, proposals have, I don't know if three, well, I'll just talk through it. You have to do your research for research. Like if I'm applying to go to Mars, I'm applying to this specific person that goes to Mars a very specific way. This is just an example. I'm not applying to go to Mars. I would, in my application, convey as much knowledge as possible without being annoying about what I know about their specific process to going to Mars. And then it's always nice to hear about why your research is important. So when I applied to research at NASA in high school, it was about studying aerosol sizes. So I talked about the methodology that researcher had been applying in the past. And then I talked about why I was really interested in that research, because aerosol sizes have impacts on asthma, on local populations, and I have asthma, and things like that is very important. Just being like, this research is important, and I know why. That's always good to know going into it. I feel like those are my main tips. Hi, my bachelor degree is physics education, but I'm interested to apply master's in engineering for renewable energy. Am I eligible to apply this program? Did someone respond to that one? Oh, sorry. Hello. Yes. It totally depends where you're applying for a master's, but if you, well, there are several types of master's programs. A master's in research is just a master's program where you're just doing research. And usually for that type of thing, you need a really strong background in what you're doing research in. If you're applying for a master's, that includes classes and things like that. I think depending on where you're applying, there's more openness to students that didn't necessarily do an undergraduate degree in that field. And masters in some cases are just opportunities to get more training and learn more about different things than what you did your undergrad in. So a lot of people would say that what you did your undergrad in doesn't really matter as much. It's just selling yourself to the master's program. And then if you know nothing about this subject, then you're not going to do well in the master's program and you won't be happy. So just, it's kind of like not a two-way street, but just like knowing what you're getting into, but also you're definitely able to apply for any master's program. But especially if you weren't a part of that department beforehand, sorry, this is a long answer, but I would recommend emailing or trying to meet with professors in the department to explain your situation. So when your application goes higher up through the ranks, a professor will be like, oh, I met with this person, they seem capable, blah, blah, blah. Oh, I see, you copied and pasted the questions down there. Okay, I have one question. People are often worried about the living cost before even applying for a research position, especially if it's in a different country. In general, do they have scholarships to offer for doing research? Okay, so the big thing with that is in most countries, like graduate programs are covered or can be covered by scholarships, but research internships, because they're not as structured and they're more like, unless they're through like a very specific program and you're trying to go to a different country, they might not have the opportunity for scholarships. So I have emailed professors before about internships, and we've both been interested in working with each other, but if they don't have money to host me, then I can't successfully work on that research. And if you're doing work, like if you're doing research, you should be getting paid. So if they don't have scholarships, like through the university or something like that, if the person that you're trying to work with doesn't have grants or anything, then I don't think it's really worth it. Because it's like not being able to live is super bad. Yeah, in New York, I was paid through NASA because they have different grants set up for that at Simon Fraser University. My research mentor paid through her grants, and then I get paid in Tasmania through a big Antarctic grant system. So I've always been paid because I couldn't really do research otherwise. You just have to ask your professor that you're trying to work with what kind of situations that they have, because they understand that you can't just work for free. Have you ever had difficulty in completing your study, and how did you deal with that? Yes. I had a lot of problems because I studied physics in engineering, and there were a lot of factors that made it very difficult. And I thought about changing my major like 100 times. I wanted to try like computer science or mechanical engineering. How I dealt with that, just finding people who also struggle is very useful, like finding people to do homework with or get through tests with, and then meeting with professors is a big one. A lot of people don't necessarily make the initiative to do that, but falling behind in classes is one thing, but being in communication with your professor, being like, I'm falling behind, like I didn't do well on this test, can we meet once a week to go over the problem set in a one-on-one situation just for like half an hour? Just like staying on top of your work is, I guess, how I did it, but it was really difficult for a lot of the time. Oh, I have a follow-up question. You mentioned earlier doing some works with NASA when still in high school, but for most people it is difficult to take the first step, especially when you are still at young age. What encouraged you at the time to seek for the info and apply for one? I think I was watching a lot of Doctor Who, which is a sci-fi show if anyone doesn't know it, and I was like, oh, I want to go to space. So I Googled NASA internships. It was kind of random. But I found one that looked at life on Mars, and I applied for that one, but I also just wanted to make sure that in case that didn't work out, I had other options. So I also applied for the aerosol one. So it was kind of random, but they also paid me pretty well for a high school intern. So that was another thing that I was interested in. But I really didn't think I would like climate science. I really wanted to go to space. But just like having the initiative to be like, oh, like this is a possibility, like I could be a scientist is kind of a cool thought. I don't know. I think that was it. Could you share with us how long you waited for the acceptance letter for NASA internship? How's the NASA internship? So most application cycles, oh, we're in the Southern Hemisphere. So most application cycles are typically you apply in the fall, or okay, typically you apply in like November, or January, and then you hear back by like March, April, which is when your summer is in the summer, which isn't, sorry, June, July, August. And then I guess if your summer is the other way around, it would be reversed. But it's usually a 5-month waiting period-ish for hearing back from internships, unless it's not through a portal. Like the NASA one was, but for the NASA, I think I applied in the fall and then I heard back in like February, March, and the NASA internship, it was really great. I didn't have any skills, but it was a really great internship in that it had training as part of it. So I learned MATLAB, which has been a lifelong skill now that I use all the time and is super important. And I met a lot of people through it that studied very different things and were at very different levels. So it was like really great exposure. It was kind of weird because I was, I guess, pretty young in high school during the summers, taking the train into New York City to go to an internship in science, and none of my friends were doing that. So it was a little bizarre. It was that was awesome, going into New York City and things like that. And meeting different people. I don't know what else to say about it. It was really awesome. I would recommend it to anyone. Okay. Any personal tips when emailing professors regarding research position, like what kind of information we have to include on the email? Oh, I can post I have an email template that I use for each professor that I email. I always include my CV as an attachment. My email subject is always referred from blank, if I was referred to them from another scientist or a student interested in blank, depending on the context. And then I make sure to say, like, as quickly as I can in the email, why they should care about my email, which is generally just like, I'm interested in studying what you're studying, kind of thing. And having your CV is super important. So I'll always say, for your convenience, I've attached my CV. Let me know if you have any questions about it or something like that. Because if they don't read any of your email, they'll at least open the attachment maybe super quickly and see what kind of experience you have. And maybe they'll be interested in your background, or like they see that you're involved in like a hobby that they like, or like your address is from their hometown. I don't know, it's just useful to attach your CV, which is why it's useful to have a CV. Ooh, okay. Oh, are those all the questions? I don't know if I answered all the questions. I can just kind of chill here if anyone has any other questions on it. I don't know if I have anything else necessarily to say. I guess I could just like leave my CV up, because this is like the crux of it when you want research. Or for graduate programs, I had to upload my CV when I was applying for PhD programs this past October. Ooh, okay. A new question. Okay, sorry. I graduated in physics education, but is physics education like physical education? Or is it like physics? Or is it like educating people in physics? Okay. Okay. Oh, but I'm, okay. Keen on doing experiment. I want to pursue my master that more focus on research. What kind of major should I apply? If you want more experience in more applied science, there, like at UTas, for example, some of the people in okay. Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. That's what I thought it was. Well, I did applied physics, which was engineering physics, so it was more experiment-based. So if that's a major, if that's available to you, I'm sure you have the background in it. So like applied physics, even like mechanical engineering or something like that, like any sort of applied subject where a master's program is going to teach you all the math behind it, but you'll also probably have a big research experiment lab component to it. I mean, it totally depends where you're thinking about doing your degree. If you want a master that focuses more on research, that would be something you'd communicate in your application. And then like you would find your right fit and they would find their right fit. Like you would just have to email professors in those departments and be like, I'm interested in this. Like, do you think this is right for me? And they'll let you know. Yeah, but going from physics education to a master's in that kind of experimental like pursuit shouldn't be a problem at all because you have all like the foundations you need. And then a master's just makes you a bit more specialized. Does anyone else have any other questions? Oh. Hi, Albert. Albert and I work and sit next to each other during the week. So maybe the follow-up question would be, do they usually require prior research experience? Sometimes they do. It's always like more useful to have. I think there's like a meme about it where there's all these jobs that want you to have like 10 years of experience in that field, even though you're only like 10 years old. Like it's not possible. So I think they like prior research experience, but they don't necessarily require it. But if you are looking to just get a little bit of research experience, it isn't as hard as it seems. Like you don't need a full-blown internship. You can always ask to work in a lab for 3 hours every Friday or something, just so you have like a little note, like, oh, I've had a little bit of experience. And not only will it be more useful to them if you have research experience, but it's more useful to you because it can be really hard to get into a research without having experience, and it just makes it a lot more difficult. But if you have experience, it'll like be a smoother transition. Hi. Oh, I don't know what that says. Yeah, so I think we have like 4 more minutes, so I can stick around if anyone has any other questions. My presentation I can save as like a PDF and give it to Albert to post somewhere if that's useful. Let me think. Oh yeah, and feel free to email me. I'm very much okay with that. If you have follow-up questions or anything like that. Or if you don't care about my research but want to get involved in some type of research, I could probably help you out in some way. Okay, cool. Yep, cool. Just let me know. I didn't have a thank you slide, but thank you all for listening to me talk about myself and how to get research. Let me go to my last slide. I appreciate it. Okay, cool. No, thank you. Thank you for listening. Should I stop the live video then? Is that my next step? If there are no more questions. Oh. I can just wait it out for 2 more minutes, I guess. Talk about IMAS a bit. Oh, okay. I don't know what to say. IMAS is the Institute for Marine and Antarctic Studies in Tasmania. People say Tasmania is the gateway to Antarctica because it's like very close to Antarctica. And I work at the Institute twice a week. The rest of my time is with Albert at the other campus. And there are scientists there doing literally everything. I do glaciers, but a lot of people do oceanography stuff, ecology stuff, birds, whales, like the whole enchilada. I don't know if that's a saying. So it's a really cool institute, and there's a ton of funding for this kind of stuff because the reason for most of these studies is changing climate and things like that. Okay, cool. All right, well, thank you. Feel free to email me. And thank you all for listening. Have a good day. All right.